I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and part 2 of the Sony Xperia Ion review starts right now. Let's start off part 2 a little bit differently and do some quadrant standard and some other speed tests first in the video. But before we get into that, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like the Xperia Ion, like the Samsung Galaxy S3, the One X, the Evo 4G LTE, and more for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile to buy your new cell phone, you're going to walk out the door without dealing with rebates. You're going to walk out without waiting 8 to 10 weeks, dealing with messy paperwork, all that garbage that you have to do when you have mail-in rebates. At Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out and not have to pay those. So here's the Xperia Ion, like I said in part 1, coming to AT&T on Sunday the 24th for $99.99. So a pretty nice value proposition here, considering the fact that you get a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S3 processor, you get a 4.5-inch HD display, so you're getting true HD here, getting an 8-megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording. Not a bad deal for $100, even though it's running Android 2.3 with Sony Ericsson's Timescape UI on top of it. Timescape's been much improved, and if you want to check that out, check out part 1 of this review for more on the in-depths of Timescape. We're going to get into some speed tests right now. So we'll load up Quadrant Standard first and take a look at that. And while we're loading it up, let me tell you a little bit about call quality. Overall, call quality's been pretty decent on this device. The biggest problem I've had with the Xperia Ion is the earpiece. It's just not a very loud earpiece. So if you're somebody like me and you're halfway deaf or something, you just have trouble hearing, it might be a challenge for you. Go to the store, take a look at it, give it a listen, dial 611 or something and give it a listen in store to see if it's something you can put up with. And from there you can make your decision on whether it's a device you can stick with for 2 years. Otherwise, reception's really good. Took it to an AT&T dead spot in South Charlotte, and despite it cutting in and out, it maintained the call and worked perfectly fine. Battery life's been relatively decent. A little bit on the, I wouldn't say terrible by any means, and I would say it's pretty decent with moderate use. I've made it about 10 hours on this device, 9 to 10 hours with moderate use. It charges relatively quickly. I do notice the battery life is less than what I would prefer on my device, but then again, I've been working with devices like the Droid Razr Max, the Evo 4G LTE. These devices that have 2,000, 2,100 milliamp hour batteries, or in the case of the Razr Max, 3,300. So they've got big batteries. I'm used to a little bit better battery life, but it was a little bit underperforming in that department. But the real value proposition I see with this device, it's a member of the Sony family, and as a result, you've got some great content deals. And if you watch my videos over the years, one of the things I've kind of criticized Android for is it doesn't have that content ecosystem like iOS has. Everything's kind of fragmented when you think about it. You have like Amazon, you have Google Play, you have 47 different places to download stuff, and that may work out well for a lot of people. But if you're somebody like me, I kind of like consistency there where I can download from one place. Quadrant Standard 2,986. I like to be able to download from one place. I think the content deals that Sony has and the Sony Entertainment Network has is really going to be a nice value proposition going forward for this device. Actually, before we go into camera, let's do this. Let's go into speed test and have a look. AT&T's 4G LTE running here in the Charlotte metro area, and I should have downloaded speed test. I don't know where it went. Downloaded speed test in the break before I switched to part 2. Thought I did at least. Maybe I didn't. Let's go back to speed. I thought I did. Let's see. Guess not. Free. No, I got sidetracked because there were 13 applications that needed updating. So I took care of those. So we'll download speed test. You can get a real-life look at AT&T's 4G LTE right now. Relatively quick in the Charlotte metro area. It's much faster in most cases than HSPA+. Although I notice in the Charlotte area at some points throughout the day, like right now uptown, you may find the HSPA Plus is a little bit faster. It's not the greatest in the world in Charlotte. I mean, it's a decent speed, but the biggest issue I'm running into is I'm getting like 4 to 6 megabits per second. Not bad at all, but still in comparison to these markets like New York and Chicago that are getting 35, 40 megabits per second, or even on the outskirts of the city, I've seen stuff as high as like 25, 30. But when I'm in the middle of uptown or when I'm anywhere in the city limits, this is kind of what I'm seeing, like 5 to 7 megabits per second. I've seen bursts as high as 10. I've never seen over 10 megabits per second on AT&T in the city. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're in a market where you get killer speeds, where you're going to enjoy those killer speeds with this device, just like you would with any other LTE device. So pretty respectful there. And then the upload speeds are decent as well. 6 megabits per second on the upload, very consistent. Much like Verizon, the market is kind of, the network rather, is kind of saturated. Got a bunch of people on LTE. They kind of migrated quickly. Both carriers tell me that in the Charlotte metro area, they migrated relatively quickly. So that's over to LTE. So that's something to keep in mind. Now let's look at the camera here. You got an 8 megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording. Not going to be the best in the world, especially when you look at some of the devices. And I know I keep referencing these two, but these are the two kind of flagships right now. The One X / Evo 4G LTE in terms of camera, and then the Galaxy S3. And you know, for the most part, both of those are killer devices with some killer camera settings. This one's okay. It's not the best in the world. And actually, I'm going to bring over the Galaxy S3 that I have laying right here so we can do something like the Sprint logo. Take a look at it. Where you do see a benefit here, really beautiful HD display. And then, of course, I've got the Sprint logo that I just took a picture of. And you can see relatively clear. Not clear right now. Let's wait for it to load. There we go. Relatively clear, zoomed in, you can really see, and it's pretty decent. You can see kind of even the granular stuff, like little specks of dirt on the back of this white case. And overall, that's relatively impressive. So a decent camera. Again, keep in mind you're spending $100 for this phone, and you realize, hey, that's a pretty decent camera. Another thing you'll notice, snap a picture so you can see it, and they load up separately. It's a little bit of a different application here than the stock camera application on stock Android. You get your ability to turn your flash on and off, make some changes over here. With normal, 3D sweep panorama, you got a couple of different things, sweep multi-angle, 3D. Let's take a look at it. And then I'm going to press the camera key and I'm going to slowly pan the camera. So you can take a look here. And it's creating a multi-angle image and 3D image. So you do get some nice camera settings here and some cool things you can do, but in, you know, in comparison to some of the others on the market, you may want to pay the extra $100. Let's see what I got here. I'm going to tilt it left or right so you can see, and it's definitely 3D there. It may be kind of hard to see on the camera, but those are some cool settings that you get on this device as well. So you got a nice value proposition here. Like I said, battery life's relatively decent, and then when you come in here, you can see a couple of different, let's go in here and show you the music player, for example, so you can see what it looks like. Transfer music tracks to the phone. I've got my music over here, and overall it's pretty quick and easy to use. And for somebody like me that listens to music a lot when they work out, it's nice to have a good music player. I think that's something that's really beneficial, and hopefully they can continue to be successful there in that department. So all in all, pretty decent device. The biggest downside of this device, in all honesty, it's $100 and you don't have ice cream sandwich. Otherwise, specs are pretty decent. The S3 CPU, not the fastest in the world by any means. There's a noticeable lag in comparison to some of the S4 chips on the market, but still, for $100, you really can't go wrong, and it brings a nice value proposition with an HDMI port that you can plug into your TV and do some great content stuff on your television. It brings a nice value proposition to the table and is a great addition to AT&T's smartphone lineup. Get it on this Sunday, the 24th, for $100 at AT&T retail stores and online at att.com/wireless. Check it out. And be sure to stay tuned to PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage of the Sony Xperia Ion. Stay tuned, we'll have plenty of dogfights, all kinds of stuff, pitting this device against some other contenders on AT&T, the Lumia 900, and on other carriers as well, perhaps the LG Viper on Sprint. Stay tuned, much more coverage to come. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/PhoneDog. Let me know what you think of this phone on Twitter when you get it this Sunday, PhoneDog_Aaron, and on Facebook at facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. And if you got this phone today, enjoy your new Sony Xperia Ion. We'll see you next time.